Hello there to the few people that will stumble across this video and my one faithful subscriber. You know who you are. Thank you. Um, this vlog is inspired by the nature of the discussion between atheists and theists that I see on the internet for the most part. And this is a little disclaimer, I do realize that the internet is a very vicious place and people love to take lots of opportunities to insult each other. So I'm not really talking about that. I'm talking more about the people who claim to be rationally minded and have discussions with others, and those discussions oftentimes become like internet shouting matches or what have you. The example that I'll open up with is a little guy I like to call Kent Hovind. You may have heard of him. He's a hardcore creationist evangelical, and he is also a federal inmate now. But a lot of times at debates, he opens up by calling the opposition, which is often a board of very educated professors and distinguished thinkers of our time, and he opens up by just calling them all stupid. The ideas about evolution and whatever else they believe, he calls them stupid, and he opens up in a very emotionally charged way where he's immediately personally attacking the people that hold these beliefs rather than intellectually offering intellectual challenges to the beliefs that they hold as ideas. And it gets really personal. And I think, I would say to Kent Hovind, why do you accuse others of destroying science when that's what you do, in my opinion, when you rudely degrade others and in so doing distance yourself from the open minds of the opposition? Why inject emotion into something that has to do with pure reason? My thought is that it would be much more productive if we left our feelings of anger and pride out of these kinds of discussions, and we were all honest with ourselves and reasoned together as one body of people in search of truth. I believe in presenting our ideas respectfully to one another so as to create an atmosphere conducive to cooperative reasoning as opposed to defensive, closed-minded arguing. So what is gained by the more emotionally charged, angry approach? I think we experience selfish gratification and a slightly enlarged ego, but at what cost? I think we lose something much more valuable than the pride that we gain. I think we lose the open ears of the listener and almost any hope of productive discussion. Because when someone feels personally attacked, they naturally become emotionally defensive. And in my opinion, open-minded discussion achieved through respectful and humble presentation of ideas is far more productive to the advancement of the knowledge of humanity as a whole than attacking one another personally and emotionally. And I'm just going to talk about lessons that I've learned from marriage in the past 2 years that pertain to this. In any argument that we have, or as I like to call them, discussions, if one of us starts to become overly emotional and just really angry at the other person, that emotion kind of takes over the reason that we have in our minds, and we begin to personally assault each other, verbally assault each other, not physically. And this basically causes the other person to just shut down in fear of being more emotionally hurt. And this is like a natural response of human beings, that when we feel we're being attacked physically or emotionally, we try to protect ourselves. And we do this emotionally by just basically shutting down, which just completely erases any hope of being able to understand what the other person is really trying to say, because we close our minds and we don't allow their thoughts into our minds, and we don't consider them honestly because we're just pissed off at each other. So in 2 years of marriage, our goal when we start to have a discussion is to be calm and to use reason and to try to leave just the anger and stuff behind, and just really try to talk to each other as human beings and really try to understand where we're coming from. And that's a lot more productive in a marriage than getting angry, yelling at each other, and then sleeping on the couch. And I think that's a kind of a stark illustration of what can happen in any relationship, not just a marital one, but any relationship between two human beings where they're trying to convey their ideas to one another. And lastly, I believe that humility is essential to anyone seeking truth, because we must always be willing to admit that we could be wrong. We should not be so confident in ourselves as to think we know anything in absolute certainty. Some theories are better supported than others, of course, but there is always room for a better explanation. After all, the universe is fundamentally governed by probability, and this is stated by the uncertainty principle in quantum physics, just basically saying there is a fundamental uncertainty about the universe. So we can never be 100% certain of anything. There is no absolute truth. Don't get me wrong, there's some truth that's much more proven than others. There's also various mathematical theorems that attempt to prove in mathematical language that our minds cannot ever grasp the entire truth of the universe, that there's a fundamental unknowability about our universe. And that's what I think we should keep in mind as we enter into these discussions with each other, that ultimately, hopefully, the goal is understanding each other and all reaching a rational conclusion for ourselves. And that's all I got. Thank you very much for listening.